Hello and welcome back to another new edition of Windows on Current Affairs. And today, of course, we're going to be talking about the huge event that is expected and awaited by the whole world, a continuation of Glasgow's events on climate change. And here in Egypt, in the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, we're going to be holding in November, 7th of November, COP27. Of course, we're going to be hosting the whole world over here to Green Sharm el-Sheikh, and this is the title of our episode today, the green jewel of the world, which is Sharm el-Sheikh. Of course, we're going to be hosting presidents, leaders, entrepreneurs, thinkers, and of course specialists in environment and experts in efforts to stand up to the climate change and more. Of course, all the specialists and all the people who are concerned in that issue of the hour are going to be attending that particular conference that is going to be held next month, of course, in a few days in Sharm el-Sheikh. We're going to be talking about the Sharm el-Sheikh as a beautiful, charming place and a destination that is mostly visited by and liked by the whole world, and transformating Sharm el-Sheikh into a totally green area and a green city that is going to be receiving delegations worldwide and more. Of course, we're going to be talking about how this is going to boost tourism and going to present Sharm el-Sheikh and Egypt as a whole, the jewels in Egypt, the treasures in Egypt, possessing 1/3 of the world history, to the people who probably have never visited Egypt before. And we're going to be talking about all that and more in this edition of Windows on Current Affairs. And we're very delighted to be having with us Dr. Amr Atef, and he is a travel expert, PhD in Heritage and Museum Studies. Good evening, Dr. Amr.
Good evening, Tina. How are you doing?
First of all, as we all know, that the whole world is awaiting an unexpected event, not because it's a conference on climate change and environmental issues, and this is one of the top priorities of the Sustainable Development Goals, but because it is going to be held in one of the most charming destinations worldwide, and of course also a green city, environmentally beautiful and prepared for its guests, and with many beautiful places to visit, in addition to other places in Egypt. Of course, people who might not be staying during the 15 days of the conference might tour around Egypt and see, maybe later after the conference. So how do you see that huge event awaiting the world here in Egypt?
Well, as you said, I mean, the COP27 is considered to be the event of, if I can say, of this century for Africa and for Egypt. And I think Egypt is blessed by accommodating this big conference of COP27. We're talking about thousands and thousands of people who are coming from all over the world, different delegations. And we're talking about presidents and prime ministers and ministers and I mean, people who are in charge of different businesses, and we're talking about people who are into, I mean, environment and into, I mean, we're talking about people. We've been receiving, as we are working in the field of tourism, we've been receiving phone calls and emails day in and day out. We're talking about people who want to book rooms and attend the conference, and we cannot even cope if we're talking about COP27. So we cannot cope with all what I mean, with all the requests of those who want to go to Sharm el-Sheikh. Well, Sharm el-Sheikh itself is, of course, as you said, is a charming city and a green city, and it's been for decades like a Qibla for those who want to go to Egypt and do snorkeling and scuba diving. Of course, you know, we're talking about Ras Mohammed, and we're talking about the resources there and the the corals and the reeds. But this summit has attracted the eyes of people from all over the world to come and see Egypt. And I think those who were talking about promoting Egypt and those who were talking about doing advertisement for Egypt, I think now this conference has attracted all the eyes of people all over the world to Egypt. And I mean, I was impressed, if I can say, that travelers who were with me on a tour, I mean before, 5 years ago and 4 years ago, and then I received those phone calls and they say, oh, we're coming to the COP27 and we need a fixer, we need someone to help us, we need a facilitator. And I hook them with friends and colleagues, and so they can have people to help them there with the hotels and restaurants. And we're talking about 500 hotels in Sharm el-Sheikh, and that's huge. That is a huge number. 500 hotels that are getting ready and getting prepared for COP27. So, and it's not only about the conference, it's the pre and the post. Because before the conference starts, we're talking about tons of people who will be coming to visit Egypt. And you want to see the pyramids and you want to see the Sphinx. And then post of the conference, there are lots of people who want to do tours. And if we want to talk about COP27, we should mention, and I would love to mention my dear professor, Dr. Fikri Hassan, because Dr. Fikri Hassan, as a matter of fact, came up with great ideas about climate changing. And I just want to praise him for all his ideas, not only about heritage, because he also came with great ideas about heritage and heritage science management. Dr. Fikri Hassan is in charge of the heritage program at the French University in Egypt, and he's the one who introduced heritage and heritage science management to Egypt. Not because he was my supervisor in the master degree and also in the PhD, and not because that he gave me the chance to be on the academic path, but actually he is really a man of knowledge, and he had great ideas about climate changing. So we should mention that out loud and clear. He actually did a study about how Egypt was one of the very first countries that reacted to the climate changing. And also he did another study about why they stopped building pyramids. And you'll be amazed. If we're talking about Sharm el-Sheikh and we're talking about the conference or the summit of COP27, people always think that they stopped building pyramids because the pyramids were looted, or because it was expensive, or because they moved the capital to Thebes or Luxor. And the idea is they stopped building pyramids. Part of it is because of the drought that happened in Egypt. And this drought had, the Nile didn't flood, and there was no rain. So the drought lasted for years and years and decades. So they had to move. And I'm talking about the Egyptians who lived around Memphis and around the pyramids at the time. So they moved. Where did they go? They moved to Fayoum, and the Fayoum oasis, and they settled there, and they built the dams to accumulate the water that comes from Bahr Yusuf in Fayoum. And they needed to do farming, and they needed like an oasis. So they started to farm the area, and it became lush and vegetated to live. So this gap that happened is why the Egyptians stopped building pyramids. Not only this, but you talk about the Nilometer in Egypt, the Nilometer in El Maniel, in El Roda, you know, the Nilometer or the Nilometer in the Roda Island in Cairo, or we're talking about another Nilometer in El Maniel. We're talking about all those Nilometers were to react to the climate changing. So, and more, if we move from the Nile and the idea of the flooding and so on and so forth. If we moved to the valley of the whales in Fayoum, and the valley of the whales, you go there and you see the fossils mixed with the sand, with the yellow sand, and you walk and you see the fossils, a clear evidence that this area was under the water. And also all the whales, of course, that are there and have been there for millions of years is an evidence that there was a sea life in this area in the past, and then the climate changing affected that. This is what we studied, and this is what Dr. Fakri Hassan taught us. And if I have a chance, and if I can, just to give the man the right and to give him a credit for all his studies and all his ideas, I'm happy to say that in your program, and thank you for that. We go back, please.
Right. That's very nice what you said, because if it reflects anything, it reflects a place that became intact for years and years and years, and this is what became now sustainable tourism.
Absolutely.
That is coinciding with our idea now that we are hosting the COP27, that is hosting all the ideas and all the suggestions and papers to be able to preserve environment, to maintain the biological balance, and consider the rights of the ecosystem, and all that, with all the international communities, different international community organizations who are considered in that particular issue, which is worldwide, catching worldwide, and this is the issue of the future. Now that we are having that wide notion of sustainable tourism and applying it over here, and you can see the effect of how we are preserving the environment and the history of our environment, how it has bloomed into a city beautiful like Sharm el-Sheikh, like Sinai, like Dahab, like it doesn't come to my, I mean, we have many beautiful destinations that has been there for ages, and like even like the pyramids area.
Of course.
So how does that reflect that such a country, such a are hosting, it is hosting the conference with all these beautiful cities located there? How is that going to reflect to the visitors?
Well, I mean, the visitors, this will open the gates to different kinds of tourism. If we talk about Egypt, if you want to culture tourism, you come to Egypt. If you want to see the only ancient wonder that's still there, you come to Egypt and see the Pyramid of Cheops. If you want the sea and the sun, you also come to Egypt and go to Sharm el-Sheikh and to Dahab and Nuweiba and Ras Mohammed. And if you want to do water activities, if you want, I mean, I think when it comes to tourism, I have not seen any country worldwide that had those beaches with, I mean, the yellow sand in different parts of the world. And I've been almost in different countries and all over the world, and I see the sand and, I mean, and the beaches there. It's very rocky, and I don't want to mention countries, but I mean, it's rocky, and it's not comfortable, and sometimes steep, and lots of waves and tsunamis and this and that. Egypt, I mean, it's the sun that you have all the time. When it's very cold, chilly cold in England, I mean in Europe in general, England or Germany or France, or it's warm and sunny in Egypt. People come here and say, I mean, you have this, is the weather like that all year round? Yes, it is. Yes, sir, it is. It is like that. We're blessed. We're blessed with our geographic location as a country. We're blessed with the hundreds and hundreds of kilometers by the Red Sea and by the Mediterranean. No country has two seas. We're talking Red Sea, we're talking Mediterranean. We're talking a location that you cannot find anywhere else in the world. So we got to be proud. And when people, I simply just came to my mind years ago, I don't know, I mean, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years ago, there were friends, and I mean fellow friends from the US of A, and I think they were owning a business or something, And they said they had an Egyptian who was working with them in the office. And then they came to the pyramids, and they were talking to each other. And one of them told his friend, and I was standing behind, and I could hear what they're saying. He looked at the pyramid, and I'm talking about the pyramid of Cheops, and he told him, they really have to be proud. No wonder our friend is very proud. So, I mean, they're talking about the pride that the Egyptian friend of theirs is proud of the pyramid, and they can now, and they admitted that. They said they have to be proud. Anyways, back to tourism, and tourism can, I mean, it's a great source of economy and a great source of income. And today, when I was at the pyramids, I can see parachuting at the pyramids. I mean, I can see lots of activities. I mean, travelers from all over the world, and I'm talking all over the world, not only the pyramids. In Luxor, I was in Luxor last week. You see, I mean, I was so happy and glad that the temples were booming with travelers. And I just want to knock on the wood. I mean, knock on the wood. There are lots of people from Spain and from Italy, from France, from Great Britain, from the US of A. Great amount, I mean, great number of American travelers with different travel agencies. I don't want to mention names, but I mean, I was so happy. And all our friends and colleagues and the guides going with the groups with the signs and the tags, and Karnak, we're talking 67 acres or more, largest temple that was built for worshiping a god by mankind on earth. You cannot, there is no place for a foot in the temples of Karnak. You walk through the colonnade and you see waves and waves of people. And you don't know where they are from. And I mean, you walk by and you hear French and Spanish and Italian and Russian and Russian groups. All types of tourists. All types of tourists. So anyways, this is a reflection of the COP27. I mean, people heard about Egypt. Of course, people know Egypt and they study about it since they were in the school. But also the conference that you were talking about, I think, is a good advertisement for Egypt. Speaking of Sharm el-Sheikh and speaking of Sinai in general, I just received an email this afternoon from a friend of mine. Her name is Beth, and Beth actually was saying, well, Amr, I'm going to the COP27, and but I've been told to go to St. Catherine, and I want to climb Mount Sinai, and I've been told that this is something I shouldn't miss. And she was asking about the regulations and the time-wise, and you know, and then she even went further and said, they said I can ride a camel up the mountain. Can I do that? Is that true? I've just, someone told me that. So people are talking about Egypt all the time. Not only this. Back to Professor Fikri Hassan, and I just remember now, because you know, when I'm at your program, I think things comes spontaneously. There is no script and there is no preparation, and I mean, things just come spontaneously, and that's what I like about
exactly. But let us also talk about going back to Sharm el-Sheikh.
I still want to say one more thing about France, because the guy came from France the other day, and he said, you go to Paris, you feel you're in Egypt. I mean, the movies. There is a in the cinema. There is a movie about Egypt. In the library, there is a conference about Egypt. We're talking about Paris. In the streets, lots of advertisement about going to Egypt. I mean, everywhere we're talking about Paris, France. I'm happy to talk back about Sharm el-Sheikh, but I'm just saying how this conference, how Sharm el-Sheikh conference, reflected in a city like Paris, for instance.
Right, but going back to Sharm el-Sheikh, of course, we're awaiting one of unforgettable event that is not only an event that is focusing over the climate change and environment, preserving the environment and all the rest, but also a green city, environmentally free, and also hosting the biggest number of visitors with the most beautiful weather at this time of the year. free of pandemics, environmental, friendly, and with all these options. What are the preparations, for tourists that could be expected to be taking place for them to be able to enjoy the beauty of Sharm el-Sheikh, and then think of the neighboring cities?
Of course, the government has been doing preparations for this conference since long time, and they've been maintaining the hotels and preparing the hotels, and even before COVID, they've been vaccinating the staff. In all hotels, and they've been taking care of the infrastructure. I think Sharm el-Sheikh now is like a bride that's getting ready for a big wedding party, if I can say. And we're talking 500 hotels. That's huge. That's a huge number to be.
And 45,000 visitors.
45.
That's a good number.
That's
a hefty number.
That's a great number. And imagine how many people. The word of mouth. We're talking about. Imagine those people. How many people they will tell about their experience in Sharm el-Sheikh. Sharm el-Sheikh, you walk by and you feel the warmth of Egypt, and you feel it's a mix of a city with those fancy hotels, and also the old market where you can go and walk by Nama Bay, for instance, and enjoy the old market and the trinkets and the restaurants and the local restaurants, and then you go there and you see the beaches, the beautiful beaches, and you see people enjoying the sun and enjoying the meals. And so if we're talking about food travelers, those who are into food, they can go to Sharm el-Sheikh and enjoy different kinds of cuisines in Sharm el-Sheikh. You see lots of variety. You can find international food, you can find Egyptian food, of course. People just love it, and it's an experience. And even not only hotels, but it was good for those who own apartments, real estate in general, who rent their places, because they had a chance to advertise the place. I think
and overshowing the sea and the beautiful scenery. But let us take it from another side, which is the incentives there, and the beauties the beauty that people who might not have thought of visiting Egypt at that particular time and coming over to the conference, did not come to their interest. What are they missing? Visitors who are coming to the conference, what are they expected to see? What are they expected to enjoy in Sharm el-Sheikh? What type of beaches to go? Places to visit? Type of activities that they would do in that particular very beautiful, environmentally friendly place.
People, when you go to Sharm el-Sheikh, it's a mix of everything. And they have the Gulf area with those villas and fancy accommodations, and that's well known. And that's not new about Sharm el-Sheikh. Sharm el-Sheikh, lots of conferences took place, and peace conferences, if we can recall, peace conferences and meetings and lots of things. So they go there and they enjoy the Gulf area, or they can enjoy the beaches, the blue beaches and the sandy and the warm weather. As you said earlier, this is a good time to come to Sharm el-Sheikh. Actually, this is the best time to come to Egypt in general, because that's a question that people would ask all the time: when should we come to Egypt? And another thing, if we're talking about Instagramic tours and with the social media, because this is what people are after today.
Which is how things are working now.
Absolutely. Now people don't take your email, they take your Instagram. And they ask for your Instagram all the time. So I would call it Instagramic tours. Sharm el-Sheikh is a great place for that. People want to go there and take pictures while they're fishing, while they're snorkeling, while they're doing scuba diving, all the activities, morning and water activities, sea activities. But then if you want to go in the afternoon for a walk, Absolutely, you can do that. I remember my uncle said that he met his cousin in Sharm el-Sheikh that he haven't seen for years. And he said, we were walking by Nama Bay, and
he knocked into
he knocked into his cousin. And he said, I haven't seen my cousin for years and years. And I was like, it just came to my mind. I mean, imagine both of them are going to Sharm el-Sheikh for a holiday, and they haven't seen each other for years because of, I mean, of course, the busy life and the lifestyle in Egypt and in general. But he knocked on him in Sharm el-Sheikh, and he told me, I was walking in Nama Bay, and I just met my cousin. So that's interesting. If they are into music, if they are into partying, absolutely, they go to Sharm el-Sheikh. They have the Hard Rock cafes, and I mean, people just, the nightlife in Sharm el-Sheikh, those who are interested in the nightlife, Sharm el-Sheikh would be the place, because there are lots of places where they can go listen to the Egyptian music and enjoy the belly dancing and enjoy the Egyptian cuisine. And I think it's interesting. And I think Sharm el-Sheikh, people ask me, if you were not living in Cairo, which other city would you love to live in? And absolutely I answer back without even thinking twice. I would live in Sharm el-Sheikh. But I have to stay here because my mother lives here in Cairo, and
right,
so on, and my family. But Sharm el-Sheikh would be, if I'm not from Cairo,
would be your first choice.
You bet.
But going back to that beautiful city and the preparations, of course, people who are visiting or coming over to attend the conference, of course, they're very eager to know what type of program that is set for them aside after the activities of the conference. Aside with that, I mean, different activities that is set, new ones and traditional ones, like we have the nomadic life, the Bedouin life. They would go in the desert and have those beautiful meals that is steamed and that is grilled, I mean, in the open air. And you also have the parachuting, and you have the snorkeling and the diving, and you know, the variety of marine life inside that particular piece of area inside Egypt is beautiful. It is uncompetitive. Nobody can compete with it. I mean, the marine life over there, it's environmentally friendly. And, you know, the exotic and the extinct, you know, kinds of fish and wild fish inside the sea there, you can never find it anywhere else in the world.
Well, Sharm el-Sheikh, as you were saying, I mean, we're talking about the nomadic life, and people get impressed between, I mean, they are in these 5-star hotels or 4-star hotels or even 3-star hotels, and then they also see the nomads who are still sticking to the roots and to their backgrounds. And I mean, people ask me, they're happy. They're happy being in the desert, and they're happy to see them.
And they have their traditions, and they have their folklore.
Of course.
They have their own fashion, and they have their own culture.
Of course. And people get impressed with the life of the nomads or the Bedouins who are in Sharm el-Sheikh, and the way they live, and they also prepare for them lots of activities at night. Most of the activities, by the way, are done by the Bedouins. So if you're talking about dinners, they call it even Bedouin dinner. If you're talking about...
And by the way, it's very healthy.
Of course.
Very healthy.
The Bedouin food is very healthy. And if you're talking about a safari trip, it's done by the Bedouins. The Bedouins do it with the 4x4 Jeep safaris, and they know the route like the back of their hands, and they know the desert. If you're talking about transportation, the locals and the Bedouins of Sinai are involved in the transportation. If you're talking about services, the Bedouins and the locals. This is a clear example for community engagement in a city. So we're talking today about community engagement, we're talking about sustainability, and one of the big roles of sustainability and one of the big methods of sustainability would be community engagement. You find it in Sharm el-Sheikh, a clear example for sustainable tourism and heritage tourism, because you involve the local community in all the activities. I have not seen any activity in Sharm el-Sheikh and the Bedouins or the local community is not involved in, which is very good, and it's very healthy, and it's good for the economy, and I would call it a win-win relationship between the local community and between whoever want to invest in Sharm el-Sheikh.
Right, and also it is a good opportunity to find out the variety of cultures inside Egypt, because probably people who are not Egyptians, they would think that only because most of the world's countries, they only come with only one culture or two. But Egypt had like a variety of cultures, like the Nubian culture, the nomadic or the Bedouin culture. We have the Saheli culture. And we have, I know, numerous cultures that wouldn't come to my mind. You know better than me. And each culture is totally different and even more beautiful than the other, with its cuisine, and its I mean music, folkloric music, and its type of dialect, and its type of you know, entertainment and everything. What type of culture that I mean, what type of country that would gather all those cultures together and still remain intact?
Well, Egypt is a mix. Egypt is like a cake, and it's layers. It's a mix of different civilizations. Pharaonic, we're talking pre-dynastic first, and then prehistoric or pre-dynastic, and then we're talking about Old Kingdom and Middle Kingdom and New Kingdom, Pharaonic civilization, if we can say. And then we have a Greek-Roman civilization, and then we have the, I mean, Alexander the Great and the Ptolemies, and then we have the, I mean, the Arabs who came here 1400 years ago, and then we had several Islamic families or several Arab rulers that came here, and then we had the Turks who were here for decades, for like 500 years, and then we had the French and the British, and then we had the dynasty of Muhammad Ali, and all those civilizations had melted in Egypt and got affected by the Egyptian history and by the Egyptian society, but did not change it. They were not, I mean, it didn't change. I mean, the good thing about traveling from Luxor to Aswan, since you're talking about variety, you know, when the travelers come here, I always tell them that the thing that makes it different, when you travel from Luxor to Aswan on a cruise, that it hasn't been changed. What you're going to see, the scenery, hasn't been changed since the biblical times. It's the same. I mean, with the lush and vegetation, with the homes, and so it's a mixture of different civilizations. And as you kindly said, we have the Nubians, we have the Bedouins, we have the people of the, I mean, the Bedouins not only in Sharm el-Sheikh, but we have in the eastern and in the western desert. And this also made kind of bond or bonding and intermarriage between, I mean, if we're talking about the eastern desert, so there is lots of bondage and intermarriage with people of Saudi Arabia, for instance, with people of Yemen, with people of tribes from, I mean, Syria, from Jordan, and so on and so forth. If we're talking about the western desert, there are lots of relations with Libya and with Tunisia and Algeria and Morocco. So Egypt, the location helped, and again, it's a melting point, and people used to travel on the way to the pilgrimage in the past, coming from North Africa, all the North African countries, and Egypt was a resting place, so they would stay in Egypt to continue the trip of the pilgrimage. This country, if you're saying, of course, that Egypt has different cultures and different backgrounds, yes, but also other countries that had those different backgrounds did not stay content, did not stay intact together. Here, I think Egypt, there is a bond, one way or another, that keep the Egyptians together. And at the end of the day, as I was just saying that, and you were just mentioning, that no country in the world had all those varieties of backgrounds and stayed together in this harmony that you see. You go to Alexandria, you feel your home. You feel Alexandria is your homeland. You go to Luxor, you feel Luxor is your homeland. You go to Sharm el-Sheikh, you feel Sharm el-Sheikh is your homeland. And also there is a kind of warmth that you see when the travelers come. Warmth, in spite of all the points, but there is lots of warmth and welcoming for the travelers when they come to Egypt. And people feel it right away when they land in Egypt and they see how people are welcoming them.
On that note, of course, Dr. Amr, we're very, very grateful to you. Every time you come over, you take us on a tour over the beauty of Egypt, and also reflecting the different facilities that are given to visitors, and also the different charming spots.
Absolutely.
That probably visitors haven't heard about it.
Sure.
I mean, because of the very little time that is, I mean, we ran out of time actually. We could have also talked about the neighboring places around Sharm el-Sheikh, which is even much more, way much more beautiful, on a promise that you could come next week.
Sure.
Until on a sequence of episodes we could talk about the beautiful of that particular area that is awaiting 45,000 visitors worldwide. Many thanks to you, Dr. Amr Atef. You are a travel expert. You are a PhD in heritage and museum studies. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
All the best to you.
Thank you very much.
And I guess this would bring us to the end of this edition of Windows on Current Affairs. And until we see you again next week, that's a goodbye.